My name is May Hong. I am the speaking voice of Mira from K-pop Demon Hunters. And this is Moana Nui podcast. Signing off. Happy fans. Do it with me. Happy fans. Happy Hon.
What's happening, people? Welcome to another episode of THIStory, Hidden History, presented to you by the Moana Nui podcast team. I am your co-host, Joy Stevens, and I have to this side of me.
This side.
Yes.
I'm James Herndon.
Mm-hmm. And my super producer and, the guy that controls all the media. So we want to start the show off because a lot of stuff has happened recently, especially since the last time we met. So we want to start the show off with a moment of silence for Hayden Panettiere, for Michael Wright, and for Dolly Parton. They will be missed, very much so. All of them were great people, non-problematic, mostly. I don't know. I didn't research all of it, but Dolly Parton was a real one. If none of the rest of them, if the rest of them had problems, Dolly Parton was that chick. Her whole life. If I knew her, I would be her friend. And I once again want to remind the Grim Reaper that he skipped a page from fall of 2025. Go back and look for what you dropped on the ground, son, because you're missing some. I'm just saying. Things are out of order, bruh. Get it together. But yeah, so today, since this is Hidden History, and since this is the Moana Nui podcast, we've talked a lot about Black history. We've had a couple stints of women's history, of Latin American history, or Latino history. Yeah, but today we're going back to the roots. Because there's a lot of recognition of things in August in the current state of Hawaii, former sovereign nation of Hawaii. We're going to break it down and we're going to talk about some things. So let's get into it. First of all, as the rest of America, the world has always known this, but as Americans are coming to understand, the United States be on some bullshit. And the most recent version of it was the hostile takeover of a sovereign nation to make it a state. Y'all think the stuff they're doing with Canada is new? Y'all think the desire to get Iceland is new? No, they did it with Hawaii, a sovereign nation to make it. They did it with Hawaii 150 years ago. They were like, you know what? You. And Hawaii was like, nah, we good. And they're like, no, I said you. And then, battles, skirmishes. How you going to tell some people in their own country, in their own land, that their own language is illegal?
Yeah.
I could understand. I don't understand, but I could at least understand the attempt at logic of saying, if you're in the United States, you have to speak English. It's our country, blah, blah, blah. And so, it's illegal to speak any other language. I could almost get with that. No other country does that, though. They'll have an official language, but not a legal language. But to declare language illegal is some colonizer shit. Japan did it to Korea when they were occupying Korea. United States did it to all the native indigenous nations that were here, all the First Nations. Hello, everyone. Welcome here in the United States. And they did it to Hawaii. Matter of fact, I will commend Duolingo, even though it's a bunch of AI bullshit. I will commend Duolingo for this. You can learn Hawaiian on Duolingo.
Yes.
You can tell that they didn't have the AI resources to make it as versatile as Spanish or Korean or English or whatever. So they've actually had to go record voices because there's only so many people that still know the language. And the United States, they did that. They declared it illegal. They would persecute, torture, and you know where that goes. People who try to hold on to their culture and then turn around and tell people they got no culture. Man, y'all can go straight to hell. Just not fast enough. Looking at you, Grim Reaper, you still not on it. But let's talk about, matter of fact, I got notes because I want to make sure I don't mess this up. So let's talk about 1959, August 21, which was 4 days ago. In 1959, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a proclamation making Hawaii the 50th state, even though it was illegally overthrown to begin with. The occupation through both world wars, as a matter of fact, all of that was done without the consent of a sovereign nation. They just planted some stuff there and took over. Not to mention, not only that, but they started slaughtering the local flora and fauna, same way they did the buffalo. Killed all of the local animals, and then started porting in canned meat after World War II, because Spam is a war ration.
Yes, it is.
And now think about how many Asian countries eat Spam. Now you can make pressed ham, and they've since made it. Matter of fact, I watched this guy named Cook Him on YouTube, and I watched him make his own pressed lunch meat, is what they call it, but it's Spam, and so it's not terrible, but the fact that it was forced on people because you killed their local sources of meat and they want to take credit for giving them food is the same thing they do. Same thing they did in the United States, where they killed off the buffalo. There's stacks 3 and 4. Yes, this is where Spam came from. Spam is pressed ham put in a can, because canned goods, canned food lasted longer for the army. It's an army ration, and there's a phrase that is known in the military: the army moves on its stomach. Meaning, if you can keep your troops well fed, they're more likely to win whatever skirmishes they're in versus another set of troops who are starving, hungry, thirsty, malnourished, whatever. So canned foods, there used to be this drive in the United States to turn in all of your metal, because you could give it to the cannery so they could make canned foods for the war effort, right? And then when the war was over, you got all of these factories that make canned food. Well, what are we going to do with these cans of beans?
Right.
And this can of pressed ham that's shelf stable for a year. That's why food had to be shelf stable, because they had to get it on boats and planes to get it over there and then truck it through the jungle or whatever to get it to people, right? And so, well, let's give it to Hawaii. Well, Hawaii has their own food. No, they don't. Give it to them, right? The reason we eat canned food now, the reason we have TV dinners, all of this is just in part of the industrial war machine. And it's crazy when you think about it. Now, I got Spam sitting in the refrigerator, and it's actually Korean barbecue flavor Spam.
Okay.
Because I grew up eating Spam too, because it also was a very cheap food source. And speaking of cheap food, I know I said I was doing Hawaii, but I'm on a tangent now. Whatever stuff, do not buy ground beef for the next 2 years in the United States. Or if you do, know where it came from. Get it from a farmer's market. Get it from somewhere where they farm to table. Because I promise you, boo-boo, that cheap ground beef that this current president has found.
Oh, no.
Do y'all know the story here?
Oh, Argentina is involved. I know that much.
Argentina. This is food that China was like, nah, bro. It's got some sort of pesticide chemical that is not safe for human consumption in it. And so it didn't pass. You know how USDA grade A, grade B, we always hear USDA grade A beef, right? This is F-. It did not pass inspection. It was not to be sold. And now here they come. And mind you, matter of fact, Costco does not sell this and will not sell it. There's another reason to rock with Costco. But
yes.
any store that is selling it and doesn't lower their prices is just pocketing their money and poisoning you at the same time. Yes, and they have rounded up all these wild horses, which again is another thing that they did when they were conquering West, Manifest Destiny and all that. Kill the food source, kill the transportation, and then put people on reservations and then give them smallpox and liquor and then say that they are savages. Now, back to Hawaii. Same thing. They kidnapped the queen.
Yep.
Forced her people to sign treaties against their will. All of this is under duress, right? At military gunpoint, so to speak. And then it's like, oh, and then occupied it for 100 years and then just declared it was a state after World War II. After that. There's a lot of people be like, oh, they bombed Pearl Harbor. It was a military outpost. It was a territory. It was not a state.
No, it wasn't.
Not until 1959. My parents were alive, right? My parents were born. They were teenagers, give or take. So this is not that long ago. And speaking of which, let me get into the rest of my story. So 104 years before this, 106 years, 1852. Now think about what's happening in what we call the mainland, 1852. We are inside and outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as anybody's concerned. The kingdom of Hawaii, because it was a kingdom, it was a sovereign nation. I need y'all to not forget that. The kingdom of Hawaii officially banned slavery in its constitution in 1852. And this is 13 years before the Civil War, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this Article 12 declared that slavery would never be tolerated on the islands, and that any enslaved person that could make it to Hawaiian territory would instantly be free. So F you and your Emancipation Proclamation, right? Hawaii was like, if you can get here, you can stay here, and you can be here and be free forever. And that brings us to, actually, I'm doing these out of order. That brings us to how Hawaii became a safe haven for Black Americans in the 1800s. So the next story is, put up the painting of my friend.
That one?
That one. This is Anthony D. Allen, not to be confused with Anthony Anderson from Blackish. This is Anthony D. Allen, also known as Alani. And he was a formerly enslaved man. He arrived in 1810 and gained his freedom in Hawaii and became a successful businessman, confidant to King Kamehameha. So for all you anime fans that rock with the Moana Nui podcast and all the other stuff, the Kamehameha wave, I want y'all to understand that that's Hawaii. That's where they got their word from. Okay. So King Kamehameha the Great had Alani as one of his confidants, one of his, he was in his cabinet, so to speak. And they all were like, yeah, we're not doing slavery out here. And he bought and freed a lot of people. So a lot of times when you hear slavery apologists or people trying to make it seem like it wasn't so bad, say, well, Black people and Indian people owned slaves too. First off, Native American, but they would say Indian. That's why I said it that way. Yeah, because they were buying people's way to freedom. Now, I'm not going to say that there weren't folks that owned other folks and kept them that way. It's looking at you, Louisiana. I know what y'all did, right? All of y'all Jean de Couleur Libre. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I know about y'all. And I know about how sometimes you might, have your cousin be your servant because you were very light-skinned and they were not. And everybody knew your dad was on the plantation. But anyway, I'm off topic again. Back to Hawaii. 1810. Alani is there like, yo, get as many people here as you can. Now, understand, it's still a 10-hour flight from California to get to Hawaii. So you escaping slavery and making it there, that's going to be a couple years.
Yeah, that is a long, arduous boat ride.
Yeah.
For what boats were of the time. And
they had no GPS. They just had the moon and the stars and some oars. Right. But I mean, it was possible. People got there all the time. It was possible to get there. It just wasn't probable. But if you can make it there, you were free. And they couldn't come get you because it's a sovereign nation. Right. So that was 1852. And then in 1959, it became a state. Now, during this time, what were the white folks doing? Let's find out, shall we? And are you ready for the doles?
Oh no.
Okay, so when you hear the word dole, you think of pineapple, don't you? Matter of fact, this was a surprise to me when I learned it and we'll get to him in a second, but I learned it through American politics. So let's talk about the Dole Pineapple Factory. I've been to Hawaii a couple of times, and they do a whole tour of this Dole plantation. If you zoom in on your screen, you will see that this says Dole Plantation. Plantations have never been good for the average person, but they took over and controlled the agriculture of this island, of the big island. That's where the plantation is, and got rid of all the local crops, all the food sources, just to grow pineapples. And you cannot sustain life on one kind of fruit, right? But they raised acres and acres of land to build that plantation for the Dole family, who were heavily involved in westward expansion, et cetera, et cetera. And the original guy, I forget his name. He's out here somewhere. James Drummond Dole. And y'all look at this part. This is a face that says exploitation.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. James Drummond Dole was the first, and he created the Dole Plantation, which created immense wealth for him and his family and his progeny and his grandchildren and great grandchildren, which brings you to the next one, Bob Dole. Remember this guy?
Mm-hmm.
The one that ran for president and used to hold a pen in his hand and all the time. Bob Dole this, Bob Dole that. They used to make fun of him on Saturday Night Live. Same family. So when we talk about how rich people have been taking over the government, it's not a new thing. He was a sitting senator and he ran for president. Bob Dole of the Dole Pineapple Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. On land that they did not own, they were given. That's another thing that we always conveniently forget about the United States. They will come in and steal your stuff and give it to their friends. The same thing they did with all of the Homestead Acts and all the other things they did for white people, right? All across the United States, just giving them acres and acres and acres of land so they could get a fresh start. Now, it wasn't everybody. You had to get here kind of early, get here kind of first to get it and be of a certain type, because they weren't just handing it out. They weren't handing it out to Irish or Italians or Jews, just British, European white. Those come in. That's one of the reasons that we have the language that we have, and that Dutch is so prevalent throughout Texas and Oklahoma. And there's a lot of like little German towns. What do you think? They just came over here after World War II? No, they've been here. They've been here for a long time. Matter of fact, the phrase "get along, little doggy."
Ooh.
And we always think, why do they call cows little doggies? It's not doggy, it's doggy, DHOGIE or DOGHIE. I forget. Anyway, it's doggy, and it is a Dutch word. Yes, Bob Dole and the fruit company are related. It is the same Dole, and he used that pineapple money to fund his campaigns. Now
Senator
he didn't.
Kansas.
Senator Bob Dole. Yeah. Now he didn't. Shout it from the rooftops, because you don't want to seem like that. You want to feel like a self-made person. But no, he had money. Almost everybody in the Senate, with the exception of people of color,
yes,
came from
money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, what was I saying?
Raised to be senators and House reps.
Mm-hmm. When you find out that like Brett Kavanaugh used to clerk for like Newt Gingrich, like this is generational. They've been working on this project 2025 since like 1905. They've been since 1866. Yeah.
Yes.
America's State Line. It's one of the reasons that they don't want anything taught at all. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, they'd rather just shut schools down than have it taught that they are wrong in anything. And again, all the other countries know this. You listen to, like, if France learns world history, they learn the dark side of the United States. Same thing with Canada and Great Britain and Wales and Ireland. All of them know. The Caribbean islands, they know too, because they have a oral history that is not whitewashed like it is here in the States. But let them tell it. We ain't never did nothing, done nothing. We ain't never gonna be nothing. All we do is mooch off of them, et cetera, et cetera. But then you find out that most of the practical creations that came out, that were patented and came out of the United States, were Black and women inventors. Yeah. Stolen by white men, because they were the only ones that could have a patent at the time.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What they
one thing they couldn't patent, and we're going to talk about it now, is a recreational sport. And never, ever let them blonde surfer California boys tell you that they invented anything. The Beach Boys is just just a popular group. We need help. We don't feel safe in America anymore. Again, we never felt safe in America.
Right.
We've never been safe here. And it's one of the reasons that Black people are taking even all these lynchings in stride, because that never stopped. That's always been there. It's more prevalent now. It's making the news now. People are asking questions now, but they were asking questions before. You think the song Strange Fruit was written just for fun? We knew what was going on. We know what's going on now. We're much more vocal about it, and we're trying to get investigations to happen. But if a case is closed, it costs some money to reopen it, and you have to get agreement from the city, and you have to sue for these things. And a lot of people whose children have been murdered They just don't have the funds to do it. And Colin Kaepernick can only do so much.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, this country is a mess. But surfing was invented in Hawaii.
Yes.
They got huge waves. If you think about where they're located, especially when it comes to the currents and the trade winds and everything around the Hawaiian Islands, it's very hard to sail there. Matter of fact, many ships used to crash trying to get down there because they didn't know how to sail around the mixing currents. But it also generates huge waves. And so when you know how to respect the ocean, you can play with it. And play what he did. Wait, I got another note. I want to make sure I get my boy's name completely right. The next picture you're going to see is from the godfather of surfing. So his name is, you ready?
Yes.
His name is Duke Paoa Kahinu Mokoe Huli Kohola Kahana Moku. Duke. This is Duke, y'all. Duke kind of ripped. I'm just saying, this is a non-touched up, no filter, no TikTok picture, right? And you still got a six pack. That's impressive. But yeah, I'm gonna say his name again for you. He went by Duke Kahana Moku, but it was Duke Paoa Kahinu Mokoe Huli Kohola Kahana Moku. And y'all thought Palomalau was hard. So yeah, it's giving black and white lead. It's giving black and white Hollywood heartthrob. If they would have been so open-minded, but no, they were not. However, he was just knee deep,
swimming in it,
literally
and figuratively.
He was surfing it. Yes, the original surfboard. Right here. You were objectifying a dead man. It's terrible.
Oh gosh, just I can't take you nowhere.
I know. I'm a mess. And this was him. This is one of the last pictures of him, I believe. Still out there on the beach, still living a dream, still being a icon, right? Matter of fact, let's see if I can tell you. No, yeah, he was a global ambassador for surfing at some point. So he is that dude, right? And so this went faster. What did I say? I will stop.
Oh, God.
I'm just saying, there's so much. Dana should be teaching us the language, but you have to want to learn it. And she has to have patience with you, which is why she's not doing these things.
As someone who used to tutor a subject, you can't force it down people's throat. They have to want it.
Duolingo has Hawaiian if you want to learn it.
That part.
Mm-hmm.
That part.
I learned it for like a week. Oh, we should talk about. We won't talk about James Cook, but that story is true. Matter of fact, that was the story I was thinking of when I talked about Duolingo has Hawaiian.
Duolingo is also free.
And it's free. And you can learn at your own pace. At least you can start learning the basic languages: woman, man, women, men, door, light, all that kind of stuff, and how to make short sentences. You know, that's as far as I got before I went back into going back into learning Korean, which I can almost speak now, which is great. Where are we going? Oh yeah, James Cook. We've talked about this story before, but this encapsulates a lot of the things that we discussed just now. So James Cook came out of England, sailed down to the Hawaiian Islands. Now, he was going down there for, fortune and adventure and to see and scout and blah, blah, blah. And he stumbled upon this island with these natives. This is a sovereign nation, right?
Yep.
He gets down there and he just so happens to get there during the time when they're having their festival for one of the gods that is usually seen to be arriving on the island in clouds of like brown and white. I don't know why brown and white were the colors, but that's what they went with. And so when they see this wooden ship roll up in brown and white during the time that they celebrate this particular god, they're like, oh, it's the god. What's up, G? And they treat him very well. They give him a banquet. Now, him being narcissistic was like, they love me down here. They treat me like a god. Then he found out he was supposed to bring gifts. He's like, here's a fork, right? And a piece of rope. like they're idiots. Like they're not going to realize, did you just pull this rope off this boat? This is not a gift.
You
This
talk
is
trash at Ariel.
Right. Now, because these old sailors are nasty, one of them died on the ship. And instead of throwing him overboard in the ocean where whatever he died from would slowly be burned by the sun and chewed up by salt and animals, they keep him aboard and then they throw him in a local pond on this island, which just happened to be their source of drinking water. Mm-hmm. So they literally poisoned the well. I'm not sure whether they did it on purpose. I just know they did it. This ship leaves, and now they're sick. Their water is poisoned. They had to figure it out and dig old boy out of there because he probably came up floating sooner or later, right? So now they're pissed off with this guy, and this guy is sailing back to England. But didn't I tell you earlier about those currents and weird wind streams and everything? Yeah, he got caught up in that. His ship got towed all to hell, and now he's limping through the water. And he's like, you know what? Let's go back to that island because they treat me like a god and they'll fix it. And I can just tell them to fix it for me. And he thinks this is going to work. However, this has been a couple of months at this time. Yes, white privilege gone so wrong. So this has been a couple of months at this time that he's been gone. So he gets back. They remember the BS he pulled earlier. And now is not the time for celebration of the God that comes and brought away. Now is the time for war, and seriousness and harvest. And he showed up at the wrong time, demanded stuff. And there's also where we recognize a good partnership in men and women, because the king of the island, whose name I can't remember at the moment, his wife had a dream, and she told him, I had a dream. My dreams are prophetic. Everything in me is saying, do not leave with these men. If they try to get you off this island, do not leave the island. If you leave the island, you will die. And her husband believed her. He didn't say, oh, silly woman. He was like, yo, we've been rocking for years. You ain't never been wrong. So I'm not leaving the island. And what did James Cook and his people do as soon as they got there? And they were like, fix our boat. And they were like, fuck you. I'm not fixing your boat. Did you remember how you poisoned our well last time you was here and gave us bits of rope and nails as presents? Boy, if you don't get the hell up out of here with this bullshit. And so he's like, well, come, let's talk on the boat. And the king was like, wait a minute. This is what my wife was talking about. This is exactly it. I'm not going with y'all. I'm not getting on the boat. Then they tried to kidnap him. Excuse you, sir. You are a small force of a few people in a dinghy against an entire island nation. I know y'all didn't think y'all was about to win this fight. And they don't. And so they get beat back to the boat. However, the boat wasn't close enough. I think John Cook got stabbed a little bit, a little shanked or whatever. And he tries to swim back to the boat.
Can't swim.
He can't swim.
Which is weird, because in that era, a prerequisite to be on a boat was knowing how to swim. They literally would not take you
unless you own the boat.
Unless you own the boat.
Mm-hmm. Again, rich white man privilege, right? He couldn't swim. So he drowned, let's call it 20 yards off the coast of Hawaii. And because they don't leave trash in the ocean, they brought his body back to the island, right? Because they just couldn't leave it floating there, putrid and everything. So then after the little skirmish dies down, the other shipmates they come to the island and say, can we at least get the body of our captain back? And the Hawaiians were like, here's some bones.
Right.
And they gave them the bones, because on the island, you can't dig very deep without hitting water. And it can be very destabilizing to all the area around it to keep trying to dig holes for burial. So like most ancient nations, they burn their dead.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because it helped cremation also, whatever diseases you had on you, do not live on, so some mosquito can suck on your dead flesh and pass Ebola to everybody else. So yeah, you burn the dead. It is a sanitary practice, right? So they gave them back the bones, and they took those bones back to Great Britain or England, whatever you want to call it, took it back to England and said, these cannibals ate our captain. No, they didn't. They burned your captain because he's an idiot and a dumbass. But of course, that's all they needed. Similar to how a white woman can just scream that somebody touched her and get a whole town burned down. They went back and said, those people are cannibals and savages, and they beat us up and they ate our captain. And now here come the troops. And that was the first major invasion.
Yeah.
Right. So privilege, on narcissism, on self-centeredness, on privilege. It's a mess. James Cook, I hope, so wherever you are, I hope it's itchy.
Oh man, there's no cream for that. SPF
No.
1000.
There is not enough SPF in the world for a lake of fire. Can you imagine jumping in a lake to cool off and it's fire? Like,
oh my gosh,
that's terrible. That's terrible. The thermostat goes from hell to more hell.
The sun, actually.
Yeah, the sun. But that story of James Cook, actually, the first time I heard it, I was in Hawaii and I was on a catamaran doing one of those little, drinking tours, where you snorkel off the edge and everything. And the guy telling the story was the guide on the ship, right, on the boat. And he is telling it with all the enthusiasm I just told it to me, my 2 Black friends, and a whole boat full of white people. And he even said a couple times, he goes, now who does this kind of thing? We were like, white people do it. Some of them are saying it too, because they know, but some people were very uncomfortable. And I'm sure they gave 1-star reviews. And I'm sure he don't give a damn.
Nope.
Right.
Let him be uncomfortable.
Let him be uncomfortable.
Be uncomfortable with the truth. Sit with it. Deal with it.
The reason, as a matter of fact, the reason that it's so expensive to live on Hawaii right now is because, one, they ruined the local flora and fauna. So a lot of food has to be imported. And they maintain that subjugation. They could repurpose some of that farmland and raise cattle and pigs there and grow all their own food. They grow a lot of their own food now. I mean, of course, some things never changed, but they could be independent. But the way their statehood is set up forces them to maintain dependence, similar to the reservations of the Native Americans all throughout the Midwest.
Yeah.
We won't let you be free because we don't want you to be free, because we need this land. And so Hawaii is still not the sovereign nation that it still wants to be, although the Hawaiian language is having a resurgence, which is an excellent thing to have happen, is to not lose that language and not lose that culture. And so I forgot, I was about to say something and I went off into another tangent. I forgot where I was going.
One thing I did learn, something I saw earlier this year about Hawaii, is that because of the military and their occupation of Hawaii for a period, there's a minefield that they refuse to dig up, in which they can spread out and build more homes or turn it into farmland. Like anything can be done with it. The island flourish and thrive. But the military refuses to dig up the minefield
because there's nothing in it for them. They put those mines there because probably illegally, because they don't probably own that land. And now
it was for training.
Troops, and then now they don't want to go get them
because there's a base there.
Now they should be able to. Well, they would have to set off all the mines. They may not be able to find them and defrag them, but you could send a drone in there. But you'd have to have several drones.
Yes.
Because they're going to keep blowing up. But you could send some drones in there to set off the mines. But now you're talking about creating a bunch of destabilization of the land. And if it blows up, now you got shrapnel and all the other kind of stuff in the soil. Yeah, you really need to go in there and dig them up. But, matter of fact, I just found out, I've known for a while the difference between like produce seeds and heirloom seeds. Produce seeds, like, you buy them from somebody else and you plant them and they grow a fruit, and they usually grow a seedless fruit, right? We're not talking about King Kamehameha one because I don't have that story ready. But heirloom seeds are the ones that they grow the fruit has seeds, and you get more seeds from that. And so if you have heirloom seeds, you can start your own orchard, gardens, whatever. They outlawed a lot. First off, any seed that is not an heirloom seed is genetically modified, because all seeds should bear fruit and should be reproducible. But them declaring that you couldn't grow plants in your yard or in your own in your public area, in your backyard, whatever, that are more than like 2 feet high or something like that, was to discourage people from having their own food sources, right? And then they sell a lot of farmers these produce seeds and not the heirloom seeds, because they don't want the farmers to be able to create their own food, right? You got to buy seeds from me every year instead of just replanting the stuff that you grew last year, because I want that money. So that's the same thing that they're doing with the landmines and everything. Why should they dig it up? Because they're not going to make any money off of it. Because of course the Hawaiians are going to say this is our sovereign land, and they can't prove that it's not, right? And the government doesn't have any rights to have been out there. They borrowed it for a training practice, and my guess is what they would probably want to do is buy it up cheap for pennies on the dollar, then dig up the mines, and then create more high-priced condos or whatever out there in this secluded area. And that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say earlier. That's why living in Hawaii is so expensive, because so many rich white people went out there and made it their home away from home and their summer getaway and all this other kind of thing. And all these rich, extravagant houses, and then requiring rich, extravagant things, shot up the housing prices there.
Yep.
And that it perpetuated itself over and over and over again as businesses came over there, as it was industrialized, but it also became very elitist. So you have very poor people who are sometimes living in their ancestral homes, sometimes just trying to make ends meet for rent, but very poor people and very rich people and no middle class.
Yeah.
Which is terrible.
The native population on average can barely afford to live there now.
Mm-hmm.
You have an influx. If you ever wonder why you see so many Hawaiians along the western coast states, California, Oregon, Washington, that's why.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So.
Matter of fact, every influx of Latin or Asian people into this country is because of some bullshit we did over there.
Over there, yeah.
Whether it was Cambodia, Vietnam, South Korea, Venezuela, Caracas, Mexico to some extent, Nicaragua, all these different places where if the name of the country sounds familiar, we probably went in there and did some bullshit. Destabilized the government, caused a ruckus, ruined the local economy, and now people are looking for a better life, and they come back here.
Yeah.
Right? And then we want to say, oh, they're illegals and whatever. If you leave them alone, they'll be fine.
We don't want to leave people alone.
They don't want to leave people alone.
Opportunity to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And
capitalism is the worst.
And monopolize their natural resource for your own private greed.
Right. Matter of fact, I love what Burkina Faso and some of the African nations are doing about reclaiming their own mineral rights and forcing the people to buy, to work with them, and pulling their, did you know that France holds money for a lot of African nations, not because they asked them to, but because they took the money and said, we're going to hold this for you because you're not responsible enough to have your own money that you already had when we got here. And so a lot of countries are saying, run me my money. And if they do that, France also uses that nest egg of money to play with, futures, stocks, investments, blah, 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 blah. And they borrow the money, put it back all the time, but it's not theirs. And if these African nations, and there's several of them, that's why I'm not just naming them, pull that money out, France is broke.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, because of what Burkina Faso has already done, France's economy was destabilized. And so this idea, matter of fact, the Hope Diamond, which is one of the biggest jewels in the crown jewels in London, the Queen's jewels or whatever, the Hope Diamond is an Indian diamond that they stole.
Of course they did.
Refused to give back. All those museums, Killmonger was right. All that stuff in the museums in London and France and whatever, none of that is from there. All of it is from Egypt, Sudan, west coast of Africa, all the way down into South Africa. Just all these quaint and interesting things that they stole and put up there, and then don't want to give it back, talking about you won't take care of it properly. It was being taken care of for thousands of years till you came in there and dug it up.
Out here.
Right. And they love to put them in museums in a fashion that does play into the idea that these are primitive. Like they present it in a museum like they're living in that hut right now. Like they built these earthen tools today, right?
No.
And that's another thing I want to talk about real quick. Like if you take our pictures down, take us off screen, or if you take us off screen, we're going to be quiet, but take us off screen for just a second and bring us back up.
I should be able to do that.
Okay. Now, if you were able to see the screen behind us, you saw a bunch of half-naked people. That's what I wanted to show y'all. And the reason I say that is not to say, oh, they're half-naked. It's to talk about temperate zones and misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
Two major misunderstandings. Now, I'm leaving Hawaii for a second, but we're going to stay in the Pacific because it's hot as hell down there. Why would you wear stockings, trousers, buckle shoes, a belt, top coat and tails, a vest, a kerchief, and a wig in 100-degree weather?
Don't make no sense.
It don't make no sense. One of my friends, and this is funny because she was kind of a goody good girl, never didn't show a lot of skin or whatever. But when she graduated from her Catholic high school, she went to FAMU, Florida A&M University. Now, her Catholic high school, she had on the coats and the stockings under the dress and all that kind of stuff. She get down to FAM trying to dress modest. It lasted a week before she was up in Ross or Walmart or whatever store was there buying booty shorts and flip-flops and tank tops and crop tops because it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
And that is north of where Hawaii is, so to speak. It is pretty much equatorial, and all the equatorial region from let's call it Texas down to Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
All around the fat part of the world. It's hot, and it's hot all the time. And you need to be prepared for that. So you dress accordingly. You cover the good bits, but the rest of it, as much air as you can get, you're going to get. But because colonizers didn't understand this, they go down to Africa and see all these people and go, oh, they are savages showing their bodies and blah, blah, blah. And they don't know how to dress. They don't even have shoes on. Trevor Noah talked about this, not even a couple weeks ago. He goes, they would make fun of Africans for not having shoes. The tropics, thank you, that's the word. They would talk about them for not having shoes on. And now all these doctors, let's tell you about the benefits of being barefoot. Like, we knew that. Y'all didn't know that.
They always discovering something too damn late, but want to turn it into a trend or the new lifestyle. It's like,
right.
We were doing this before, but you called us everything but a child of God.
Exactly. We were using petroleum jelly on our face, hands, and feet, and everything, and our skin being all shiny. Y'all called us greasy monkeys, and now y'all selling Vaseline by the pound for skincare, right? We've been told about it, and won't use it. But another misunderstanding I want to talk about. The first part was the savage thing. The second part, the cannibal thing. Cannibalism has never been popular among most native melanated indigenous people. We just ain't gonna eat you because we didn't figure out how to work the land. There's no need for us to eat anybody. Now, were there certain religions that had ritual sacrifice? Yes. Were there instances of ingesting a piece of your enemy to gain their power? Yeah, that was practiced in a few places. But just I'm hungry and it's Tuesday, and we gonna kill Bob because we need Bob steak? No, there was no Bob steak. Now, you know who did cannibalize each other pretty quickly? Yep, them. Matter of fact, if you read, what's the book I love?
Oh, Dungeon Crawler Carl?
No, yes, I love that. But no. Michael Harriot's book.
That would have been my second guess, but you always talk about Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Black AF History. I couldn't remember. I kept wanting to say THIStory, and I was like, that's not it. Black AF History by Michael Harriot. In the first couple of chapters, he talks about the pilgrims or what have you coming to the colonies and not being able to make a go of it because they didn't know how to plant or harvest or grow or anything. And within a year they resorted to cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, there were already things like turkeys
Mm-hmm.
and pigs and boar and buffalo and all this other kind of meat to be had. All this other kind of meat to be had. They just couldn't catch it. They couldn't hunt. None of that, right? They were helpless and pitiful. You're very welcome. They were helpless and pitiful, so they turned to eating each other, which means they need. I feel like they didn't even try,
They didn't.
because at some point it's going to be an old buffalo, right? Catch the sick one.
the one that can't get away because
Exactly. You telling me you don't have a lead bullet amongst the hundreds of y'all? Ain't nobody come with a gun? Y'all ain't come strapped? What the hell is that?
they came strapped.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
turn on each other. I mean, we
but
talked
people-
about the first Thanksgiving, so
right. We talked about the first Thanksgiving already. But we think about how history repeats itself. So here's a group of people not qualified to do what they're being asked to do, turn on each other. And you know how we say right now, every accusation is a confession?
Yep.
They would call other nations cannibals because that's how they roll. It seemed like, why would you ever think of that if you hadn't already thought of that? You know what I mean? Like, I would never accuse anybody of cannibalism because it doesn't cross my mind to say that, you know? So yeah, they've been a mess. They've been a mess their whole existence. But so last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is representation. Specifically in anime, movies, Hollywood, that sort of representation. And in the government as well. I don't know that we have, other than having senators from Hawaii, I don't know that we have a lot of representation on the national stage from the state of Hawaii. I still think Puerto Rico should be a state, and I believe that we should be fighting for that right. And I believe that DC should be a state so they can finally have a governor and get right, you know. But anyway, representation. So there's another Moana Nui out. Is it already out, or is it coming out?
Oh, the live action Moana film. No, it's out.
It's out. So there's another Moana movie out right now, and The Rock is playing Maui.
Maui, yes.
Mm-hmm. So go see that by all means. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were discussing how people are kind of tokenizing Moana. Like, even though she's brown skinned and her sister is brown skinned and everybody in the show is brown skinned, they still want them to be not brown. You know,
as light as possible.
Right. And there's even been some people talking about the backlash in the live action, you know, that there was no white girl basically to be Moana's big sister. Like, are you serious with this?
There's no white people in the animation.
Just that one little red girl that got snot beat out of her in the first one. Little red hair girl that was talking to
Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, that's right. That's a whole different movie.
Yes. But that little red hair girl deserved to get the snot beat out of her.
She did deserve red.
She was talking wild.
Yeah, you can't be out here talking greasy and not expect to get slipped. So
they're trying.
They are trying.
They're absolutely trying.
Mm-hmm. And it is important to me personally, and I think it should be important to all of us to make sure that we are supporting. Now, I'm not saying that we got to give our money to every stupid show that comes out, you know, like that remake of Good Times, whatever that came out on.
We don't talk about
Netflix.
That.
We will never talk about that again.
The people who worked on it want to push it and say they did a good job. Let them have that. But
go ahead, do that. But yeah, I'm not saying we have to support everything unilaterally and not be discerning, because we don't want to give money into something that doesn't serve the Black community. Like, we should not support anything that's like racist against us or whatever, just because it was made by a Black person or stars a bunch of Black people. That's not what we're doing. We're rooting for everybody Black that deserves to be rooted for. And I will extend this to everybody throughout the Pacific Rim, everybody in the islands, everybody in the Caribbean, everybody in South America. I'm rooting for everybody as long as you deserve to be rooted for. You know, you and I were talking earlier before the show started about the connections between like Blacks and Asians and how we really should have each other's back better because we go through a lot of the same things, and that's all very true. A lot of us that can hear my voice right now have been colonized, and got to break that colonial mindset. And it's one of the things that I admire and love about the sovereign nation of Hawaii that is forced into statehood currently is that they never forgot that they were a sovereign nation, and they ain't gonna let you forget it either. And there were times where they almost beat it and murdered it out of Hawaii, but they are slowly regaining and rebuilding, starting with rebuilding their language. Because when you lose the language, you lose the ability to just tell the stories the way they were meant to be told. Because the language is going to have words that don't translate, right? And then stuff becomes literally whitewashed. So getting the language back is important. Maintaining the historical oral traditions is important. Maintaining the history of your own religions is important because they very much threw Christianity at the Hawaiians the same way they did the First Nations here, the same way they did all across Africa to some extent. There were Christians already there, but it was a different type of Christianity. They try to erase you and make you again in their image. And the only person's image we should be made in is God. So they're trying to play God with your life, your area, whatever. And Hawaii has never forgotten that. And that's what I love. That's why I asked Dana to give me some good stories to talk about tonight about the perseverance. So everything from maintaining your visibility as the ambassador for surfing so that California doesn't try to steal the glory from you about who invented surfing. Matter of fact, the skateboard comes from the surfboard.
Yes.
For those of y'all that don't know. So all these skater boys and everything, you're riding the wave on four wheels, but it came from a modified surfboard and then a glide and then other thing down to the skateboards that we have now. So yeah, they have the Hawaiians to thank for all of that. So rise up. That's what I really want to say. Everybody need to rise up. We got to stop doing this. And since it's still in the Constitution of Hawaii, if we can make it to Hawaii, then we can all just live there and it'd be great. And we can just put all the white people on a boat and see if they can swim like Captain Cook, you know? Yeah. But if they don't make it, we will burn them. We will not eat them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you get a chance, going to Hawaii is great. But before you go, learn the history of Hawaii, learn the important players, the characters, learn what really happened. Go past what you hear in a history book about they invited us over there and they wanted to be a state and we let them. That's all lies. That is all lies. And find out what happened to the people of Hawaii and what they are trying to rebuild. And then when you go there, it'll change the way you see everything around you. It'll change the way you see the diamond and pearl industry there. It'll change the way that you see the resorts. That damn Dole plantation, all of it takes on a very different look when you know how it got there. So do that first and then have a very enlightening visit to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And don't eat them pineapples.
I'm surprised Dole is still in existence because of them damn pineapples.
It's them damn pineapples. Yeah. That they cleared all this land to make that plantation. And then that money does not stay on the island other than menial workers. So rise up. Everybody rise up. The revolution will not be televised. Mm-hmm. Viva la revolution. Okay, well, that's what we have for tonight is a few lessons about Hawaii with extended homework. Go find out more about Hawaii. Go find out about King Kamehameha, Go find out about Princess Lani Kilani. Yeah, thank you. Yes, and Hawaii is beautiful. It really is, and everybody should go. With that, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. We'll be back next month. Next month will be end of September. We'll have some more good stuff for you. If you have any suggestions about a group of people that you would like to know more about and you don't feel like doing the research, drop us a line. Send it to info@Moana Nui podcast, or put it in the comments in this show. We'll go check the comments later and see what we see. But if you would like us to dig into something for you, we are now taking requests. All right. And we will see y'all next time.
Good night.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it cedar lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.